especially in today's day and age, you can see a ton of data from Google Analytics to ad data and all that kind of stuff. You can compile all of this stuff, but if it's not in a usable format, it's really hard to make decisions that actually move the needle forward.
What you've talked about is much like the overarching, like you need to tweak and measure in your business. And what I'm actually going to jump into is some hyper granular uh, tweaking and measuring from the local SEO side. All right. Hey, I'm Kyle Bailey. I'm sitting here in Austin, Texas. I'm talking to Tanner O'Brien. And we were talking, he and I met at a networking event here in North Austin a month or so ago. And we immediately hit on testing and just like both lit up. And then we're both gingers. So you got that going for us too, ginger power. And so talking about it, we decided we would start putting some information together. And that's how this podcast came about, this episode. And so, Tanner, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, I know you and your dad own Action Coach, the franchise. Tell me a little bit about that. I know it's national. How you came to be here today.
Yeah. So I'll keep it pretty simple. But Action Coach, it's a global brand. It's a business coaching firm that's been around, or franchise that's been around for 31 years as of like this summer. Kind of my dad and I have been a part of the franchise. He bought in back in 2011, so I've been around it for a really long time. I joined officially in 2020. And we've kind of continued to grow and build our business from there. But long and short of it is we work with business owners. Tends to be those who've been in business for a couple of years, a little bit more established. And we work with helping them build an asset, right? Build a business that truly works without them. That's kind of the big North Star in what we do. There's a lot of different variety of ways to get there. But that's kind of the focus where I spend the vast majority of my time is in the marketing, the finance, and kind of the general operations of things. Like, how do we get the business to run and operate? And then, doing those in our business so that we can continue to guide others in it. It's not just oh, we're coaches and we think we know all of this stuff and it's great. We're truly building a business alongside all of our clients and things like that. And being able to put these pieces into play and say, how do we actually see results along the way? What are the things that work? What are the things that don't work? And we've learned a lot of those lessons along that journey. So that's the general kind of high point of it. I've got diverse background that led up to where I'm at today, but man, the lessons learned in how we go about things to see results, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, that what you're doing is helping. I heard that what really piqued my interest was you said we're helping business owners build an asset. And I think where you're going with that is that you're helping them build something they can sell. At one
That's
point,
right.
so they're not like the personality of the business, and when they're gone, the business dies. They're building something that is actually sellable, right?
100% true. The big thing with, especially within small businesses, there may be a lot of those owners that aren't really thinking about the exit. They're like, why would I want to exit? I love the business, all of that kind of stuff. I got into it to be able to do it. It's like, that's great, but one day, whether we choose it or not, we're going to exit the business. It's either horizontally or vertically, right? Sometimes we get the choice or not, but we're going to eventually exit the business. And outside of just what we do with an Action Coach, personally, I look at a lot of businesses to potentially acquire. And it's typically these smaller businesses that we tend to look for when it comes to coaching. And I don't know, about 90% of the businesses I look at and talk to aren't worth even half of what they're asking. The owner is still doing all of the jobs. They don't have any testing in place. They don't know what their marketing is going to do, or they're not even doing marketing. And there's really no value to it. So that's really kind of the area that we get really excited about, is like, at the end of the day, we're going to all exit the business one way or another. Even if you don't want to sell the business, getting out of the day to day is super critical, so you can go do all the things that you actually enjoy and want to do in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most business owners, they hear these stories about exits, and it feels like that big gray foggy mountain over there that I could never get to because they don't know the steps. And it sounds like that's what you guys bring to the table, is like, okay, here's what you've got to do to accomplish this, and bring them really, it's a dream they have, but they have no idea how to get there.
Yep,
Does that sound right?
that is 100% correct.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, so let's get into, we talked a little bit before the call about some of the things you've tested, and some key conclusions you made. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of context that the when it comes to numbers within the business, that's what I just absolutely love. I know most people don't necessarily like the numbers, but if we go to the absolute fundamentals that are in every single business that we've ever talked to, understanding the numbers and the process within the business is critical. We always joke that business is math and business is people. The math ought to be the easy part because math is math. People's where kind of the complications and emotions and all that kind of stuff come in. But that foundational layer of understanding our numbers, but not just understanding it, but being able to see it in a way that we can actually make decisions off of.
Mm,
Financially, it's your P&L, it's the balance sheet, it's all the basic financial numbers in the business, and if they're not correct, you can make some very poor decisions. But it's the same thing when it comes to marketing, and that's where I've spent a lot of time. That's where we've had some really big lessons, and it wasn't necessarily that we weren't measuring things. That's step one. If you're not measuring things in the business, step one is just simply to measure. Don't try to change anything. Don't try to figure out, am I measuring everything perfectly, or am I getting all the different notes? Just start the process of measurement. Over time, we can get better at developing the system and what we're tracking, things like that. But once we get into that process, it's how do we see the data that matters. We especially in today's day and age, you can see a ton of data from Google Analytics to ad data and all that kind of stuff. You can compile all of this stuff, but if it's not in a usable format, it's really hard to make decisions that actually move the needle forward. So kind of one of the big unlocks for us, and that's if there's something that I think is like super critical for the audience to kind of take away today, is about a year and a half ago, we actually took the data that we had and finally compiled it into here's the 10 different marketing strategies that we're doing online and offline, right? It went from client referrals to networking to strategic partners to Google ads to social media and things like that. Like all of that, just all right, let's line them up line by line. How many leads do we get from each one of these during the month? How many of those leads are marketing qualified? How many are sales qualified? How many of them move to the next step? What's the conversion rate between each? How much are we investing in each one? And being able to see it in just one picture. And that alone made a critical difference because we could very quickly see there's three of the 10 that actually move the needle forward. All the
yeah.
rest of the stuff we're spending time, we're spending some money on, and it's just
Mhm.
not working.
Yeah.
And it's like we haven't even maxed out these ones that are working. And that was absolutely critical for some success that we started to see moving some things forward in the marketing side of things.
Yeah, and so in the interest of telling the audience, we all do this, like because you're a coach, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a consultant, and we all find ourselves in the same boat. And part of it, I think, is just a measure of where we are in the world today. We can have data on everything. You can have everything you want. You could literally spend the next 8 hours of your day just accessing mountains of data.
Yeah.
Even if you're not measuring on purpose, there's so much stuff out there being measured about you that you don't even know. So there's always the opportunity for overwhelm, to use a little bit of alliteration there for all you copywriters. There's always an opportunity for overwhelm. And you guys were in the same boat and you're the coach, right? So
Right.
everybody should breathe a sigh of relief if this is happening. Probably it is. We all do it, right? So the thing that I heard you say earlier was one day we don't see all this data in one place. And for the first time, I think you said in 10 years, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, in the time frame that we've been part of this business, in the time frame that even my dad had the business before I
Mhm.
came aboard, this didn't exist,
Yeah.
and it was up until about a year and a half ago that we finally put it in the right format. We're able to see it, and that made a difference.
Yeah. So you were able to, so bring me up to speed where you said, finally, we're going to put all this in one place and measure it.
Mhm.
So are you able to show us any of that? Like just what does that look like when you go, okay, we're going to bring all this into one place and look at it?
Yeah. So I'll share some screen here just to give a little bit of context. I'll show a couple things. So for those of you that are out there that absolutely love numbers and spreadsheets, things like that, you may geek out on this. For those of you that, that stuff makes your head hurt, it's okay. Just want to give you the context of how we've looked at it. Took us a while to get it there. But let me go ahead and share screen. I'll show you a couple things here. Let's see. All right. So this was one of the first things that we did was essentially let's pull together all of the marketing strategies that we have into one single kind of frame of looking at it. So here we can look at it from monthly, quarterly, and then annually, so we can kind of see what's happening across kind of the different time frames. But the big piece is like, what's the investment level that we're putting into each one? How many leads? Now, if you haven't gone through and like defined what the different levels of leads are for your business, that's kind of a critical starting point, in my opinion. Now, we're a professional services business. We have longer sales cycles. We have multiple different things. If you've got really short sales cycles, you may not need that. You may need, I've got leads and I got people that bought from me. For us, we have leads, which is like a uh, name and email, essentially. Like we've got a way to contact somebody. Marketing qualified, which is somebody who has expressed some sort of interest. Sales qualified, sales has deemed them qualified, and ultimately opportunities, which is kind of the sales meeting. But we went through here and looked at all of these different characteristics and kind of the conversion rates between each one. But the big piece that kind of came out of this is, one, we had everything all in one line, right? So if we take this whole thing, that's just for those that love the spreadsheet side of things, that's kind of just a quick, example of what that looks like. But we can look down here, and this is for this year to date. We can see that strategic partnerships massively ahead of every other strategy that we've done. Kind
Hmm.
of some repeat business, client referrals, and then a few other things over here that have been pretty high. And then you see all of these other things that have zeros next to it. And the reason for that is we found the ones that were working for us, and we turned off all the ones that weren't. So we
Okay.
stopped, putting energy into this. So if I, stop the share, let's go over to kind of what it looked like last year, because this is what we did. We looked at what was the actual data from last year, and from the data, what decisions do we make? All right, so this then is last year's data. So if we just look at this kind of this chunk right here, you can see strategic partnerships, repeat business, Avalanche, which is kind of an interview podcast strategy that we use. Those three stood out head and shoulders above the rest. Obviously, repeat business and strategic partnerships are way up there. Client referrals is kind of up there. So we looked at this and said, hey, these are the ones that are working. These are the ones that we have a positive return on investment on. These are the ones that we can put more time into until it doesn't work again. So because of that, we took that information and said, here's where our focus is going to be. We've got a limited number of team members. We've got a limited number of dollars that we can invest into marketing within the business. Where is that investment of both time and money best placed in the business? And that's
Okay.
where we took it into this year. And that's why you can see the difference between the graphs being, yeah, that back in last year there was this other stuff over here that we were doing that doesn't even exist on the stuff this year. And that's because we took a very focused approach to what we were going to spend our time investing in, and ensuring that we continue to get the results that we had seen from the previous year.
Okay. So a couple things I heard in there. Um, One of the things, and this ties back to what you were saying earlier, is you can't get better if you don't measure.
That's right.
Because you talked about we're going to help them get better, and it hit me in my mind because you had already talked about measuring that. What is better? How do you know it's better? Does it just feel better? I think a lot of times that's what we go on. It feels
Yeah,
good to network because I like meeting people. So then now I have confirmation bias that anything good that comes out of networking means networking is working. When I really look at it, I'm spending $700-800 a month on all the lunches and the fees and all that stuff. I'm spending an hour driving, hour and a half, 2 hours at the meeting. So got a 3 hour chunk of my day gone. What is that producing? Because if I do that twice a week, now an entire day every week is used up networking. So 20% of my month is producing what? And
mm-hmm.
I think that's what you're talking about. You got to measure it to know if you can get better, right? Am I on
That's
the right?
right. Yeah, 100%. I'll give you a couple examples that like for me it really hit it home for us in
Mhm.
terms of like, oh, okay, that feeling of things that are working or not working versus what's actually happening. So there's two examples. The first one is like, as I mentioned, we've got a pretty long sales process. There's a lot of different steps in between. So, there was this point where we had a whole bunch of people that were booking into, say, initial sales calls, right? It wasn't even the full sales meeting yet, but it was that first call kind of on the sales side of things. And there's multiple things that are happening from
When
there.
you said booking, what are they booking through? How is that booking happening?
In this particular one, it was kind of our interview strategy. So we would do a kind of a podcast type interview conversation. A handful of those that do that say, "Yeah, I'd love to kind of take advantage of a complimentary coaching session, just kind of see what that's like, things like that." So we'd
Yeah.
get them past that piece, and then there'd be that initial call with a coach. And then there's like two other kind of preparatory type calls before they actually sit down with the coach. Ultimately, so that they get real value from sitting down, right?
Right.
So they're going.
This is still the free, this is the complimentary call still, right?
Correct, correct. Yes.
Okay.
So in this process, kind of where I'm going with this, so we had people booking into these calls, and then we're seeing downstream, we're not getting results. People aren't even showing up to the coaching session. Like what's happening here? And we had
Mm,
this feeling that, oh, people just aren't even showing up to that initial call with the coach before the next couple steps. It's like, all right, we need to fix that. How do we fix that? Well, we need to send out some additional reminders. We need to change some of the languaging on the emails. We need to do X, Y, and Z between booked call and showed up to call, right? That's what we were trying to solve for.
yeah.
And I share this because the feeling of what was happening versus what was actually happening is where the gap is. So I went
Okay.
back and I looked at all the data and really kind of pulled this thing out, and we found out that 80% of people were showing up to their call. If
Okay.
80% of the people are showing up to the call, why are we trying to solve the problem of them showing up to the call? They are showing up to the call, right? So we spent all of this time focused on this one area that we felt was the issue, but the
Uh-huh.
real issue was something a little bit further down the stream. It's like, all right, we got to fix this little thing here, or they just weren't qualified and they're falling off at this point, or there's a few things that we noticed along the way. But the point of it is, because we started to measure the data effectively and could see this step to this step to this step, where actually is the constraint, where actually is the fall off. If that show rate was 40% or 50%, it's like, yeah, we need to fix that. At 80%, it's probably not the area that's been, we need to be spending the most time fixing. So that was something internally. Kind of the other side of this is like upstream in the marketing world. We've got an agency that we work with that I tell you is probably one of the best agencies we've worked with. And I've fired a lot of marketing people in my time. I would, being very transparent. And these guys have been really, really good. But in the few months ago, we started to see this drop off of booked meetings. It's like
Mhm.
they've usually been pretty good. Now they're not even hitting standard. Like, what's happening? They've got all this activity. It's not being reported to me. So I started asking them questions like, I need to start seeing X, Y, Z. I need to see this step to this step to this step. Please report that to me each week so we can start to look at what's happening. Because they had a feeling of what was going wrong and they're trying to tweak it and they're trying to fix it. So I go through that process and there's like about three steps. It's, outreaches to people that respond, to people that actually say I'm interested, to then I think like booked call, and what's the time frame between each. Like that's generally speaking what it was. And they had a feeling that, this one piece down kind of in the middle of the funnel was the issue. Run the data, actually get the numbers, do it week over week, find out that wasn't the issue. That actually, the piece they thought was the problem was actually doing better than standard. But these
Mm,
other two pieces were way below standard. Like, oh, so that's a different solution that we need to put into play. And I share this because like these are marketing people that really, really got it, right?
yep.
And without that layer of data, there was still gaps that we were trying to solve the wrong problems.
Yeah.
And to me, that is one of the biggest things is if you can get the data in a way that's usable, you can put it in
Mm,
this format. It's like, I can see this to this to this to this. This has a lower conversion rate. This is kind of on standard. Let's go work on solving this one. We can have a much larger downstream impact than just saying, I think or I feel that this
mhm.
might be the problem in the business.
Heard you talking about what you're measuring, and something that really popped for me was what you feel like is wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple pieces to that that I feel like I've observed. You tell me if you feel like I'm on the right track with what you said. First of all, especially when we're still in the owner operator phase and we're still trying to build ourselves out of the business,
Mm-hmm.
It's your baby. And so there's lots of things you're not going to feel like are the right problem because you can't admit maybe you're solving the wrong problem. Because if you're solving the wrong problem, maybe you have to change your core offering. If you have to change your core offering, that means maybe you were wrong about some stuff. And that's painful. I don't
Mm,
mean to minimize any of that. That is painful. That is a painful process to go through, especially if it means you have to abandon some part of the business that you really love doing.
yeah.
So I want to have compassion for anybody out there who's feeling this. Don't fear, harshness, but at some point you have to ask really hard questions. I call them power questions. I was talking to a customer just the other day, and he has a business that has a high inventory component. And so he was coming to me to go, hey, let's redo the website. Because if I redo the website, then I'll get a better image and more people will come to the website and they'll see and buy. Well, tell me a little about the problem. Well, the problem is I'm down to like very little cash because I've been paying all the overhead and not selling inventory. And so for me, an example of a power question is how, for you, Mr. Business Owner, in that case, how can you turn this cash sitting in your business right now into cash you can actually use? So the fastest way to do that is to get in front of some of the audience that you already have and start offering some of this cash sitting here in exchange for exposure. And there's ways to do that. So the power question there is like, what is the fastest route to cash for you in this case?
Mm,
Maybe another power question is, how many customers a month are coming to my business cold without any reference to me? That's a really important metric, I think, because a lot of businesses have a my personality factor, and people are going to come to my business because they know me and they like me. Well, what happens if all they do is encounter the value proposition? That should be measured. You want to measure that. So you want to measure how are you putting your value proposition into the world and impacting people, and then how are they responding?
mm,
Because that's going to be a key metric of like, and your data actually shows that your referral base is really high. And that means there's no like and trust and a very high level because you can only communicate value up to a certain point if the value is not actually there. You can get a few people to buy, you can get some of your friends and family to buy, but if the value is not really there, they're not going to go, hey, friend, go buy this too. Because now they're trusting your reputation with their reputation.
yep.
So referral, that's a key metric in any business. And that's something that you should measure. And then the next power question is how can I get more of those? What's working? How can we do more of that? That's Alex Hormozy line. Why aren't you doing more of that? I hear him ask people that all the time. And I feel silly when he asks that because I'm like, yeah, why am I not doing this thing that works? But getting back to your point, if you don't measure it, you don't know it works.
That's right. That's right.
So I wrote down a couple of notes here. Let me look at these real fast. Clear is kind, measuring is kind. I want to hear more about strategic partnership and what is Avalanche. This is a big one. Solving the wrong problem is wasting money.
Hmm.
Because even if you're just using your time is an absolute representation of money.
Oh yeah,
A
100%.
really good question I heard on a mastermind, gosh, at least 10 years ago. This guy was talking about learning WordPress, and one of the other coaches asked him, "Hey man, what are you charging out? $200 an hour. Would you pay a mediocre WordPress developer $200 an hour?" And he's like, "No, of course not." He said, "Well, that's what you're doing right now." And so that's one of those questions I love. It just cuts right to the heart of what you're doing. It measures it really fast. It shows you, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. You know.
Hmm.
So talk a little bit about that solving the wrong problem because you were experiencing that. You were
Yeah.
experiencing that even with this marketing company who knows data, who knows these concepts, that marketing company, which we've all done it, I'm not picking on anybody, that marketing company was solving the wrong problem because it felt like it was one thing when it turned out to be something else.
Yep. Yeah, the you hit it right on the head on the even if there's not a financial cost, hard cost to doing that, the time is a big piece. And for a lot of business owners, right? When we look at, the statistics of, sizes of business and things like that, it's something like 80 some percent of small business owners are actually, single employee or less, under $1 million. Like they're just not very big organizations.
Hmm.
And in that case, like you have two things that you can invest. You can invest dollars, you can invest time. And
Hmm.
most of the time, there's a lot more time than there is dollars.
Yeah.
So there is a very, very real component to investing time in the wrong areas.
Mm.
I was talking to a business owner just yesterday on, they've kind of gotten to this higher growth mode, and they're at this point where he feels like he's run out of time. So
Hmm.
now the prioritization piece has to really kick in because what they're doing isn't producing additional cash. We need
Hmm.
that cash to then reinvest back into buying back time and being able to do the right things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, solving the wrong problems, and that all comes down to one, identifying where is the best place to put the time and the dollars. Some of that's just a prioritization thing. Sometimes it's just making sure that we have the metrics in place to figure out where are
Mhm.
the actual constraints, right? There
Yeah.
may be things that you want to fix and can be improved, but is it the biggest mover? Is it the biggest driver of
Yeah.
results? So at the end of the day, if we can get a 10% increase of something over here and it's going to give us a 10% increase on our profitability, or we
Hmm.
can go do something else that will give us a 30 or 40% increase, focus on that one first because it's going to free up dollars to then go, reinvest back into the other areas. So, it's a very big topic depending on kind of which areas of the business that we're working on. But prioritizing and solving the right problems or finding the real constraints in the business is very, very massive. This can oftentimes kind of come out with just business owners in general.
Hmm.
They see all of these things that need to be fixed, and they can go and they can fix each one, but the actual owner themselves is still the bottleneck. You
Yes.
can solve all these other things and it's great, but it's not going to produce any other results until you solve the core problem, which is the owner is the bottleneck and they have to step out, or they need to figure out management skills, or they need to figure out kind of whatever that, missing piece is for them that's going to open up the ability for all those other problems that they want to solve to actually have an impact on the business. But it comes back down to what are we measuring, and can we tell where those constraints are, and prioritizing those over anything else.
Yeah, totally. So, can you talk a little bit about some of the top tools you like? How loud is that? Is that crazy loud?
I No,
Oh,
I
that's
don't hear
amazing.
anything else.
There's literally a dog right there barking his face off. So I love that you can't hear it. That's wonderful. So talk a little bit about the top tools, maybe. Just name a few tools that the average business owner could go out and try out. There's so many tools, and the cost has come down so much because of software and AI and all that stuff. So just talk briefly about a few tools that you like to see business owners use that give clear metrics and that doesn't have a huge learning curve, maybe.
Mm. Uh, Most business owners may not enjoy my answer on this one, but I'm going to say it anyway. And honestly, the easiest, most cost-effective tool is time and Excel.
Okay.
I showed kind of my spreadsheet and all of that kind of stuff, but I have yet to find a tool that's cost effective. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of phenomenal tools out there, but you start getting into deep metric analysis and things like that, it's pretty expensive, especially for many of the small businesses out there. But sometimes it's just going through the process of building out the spreadsheet and consistently putting the data in. And yes, it takes time. Yes, it's tedious, but it's worth the time that you're putting in, because that time that you're putting into it saves you so much time later on.
Yeah.
Like to give an example, we've got a gentleman that I know, and he shared a bit of the things that he's got going on in his business. And he runs a $500 million company,
Mm.
so very, very large, hundreds of employees, and we're going through measuring metrics, and they still do things in Excel. Like each
Yeah.
department has their, marketing has their piece, and that marketing one has the one for, ads, and they've got a Google ad side of things. They've got Facebook ad types, side of things. They've got their offline marketing. All of that rolls up to the marketing one. The marketing one rolls up into sales. Sales rolls up into finance. And it's still, and I asked them the question, like, okay, so you've got a lot of people on the team. You've got tons of stuff that you're measuring. How much of this is automated? How are you tracking some of this stuff? And his answer was, it's manual. because the
Mm,
team needs to be able to go in and put that in and understand the metrics that they're doing things with.
yeah.
And I was just like, huh. Well, that just puts it in perspective that we don't have to use all these fancy tools. Sometimes just the good old let's put stuff in and make sure that this works, especially if you're on the small business side of things. Like, don't invest in things that you don't need yet. Get in the habit of doing the right things. Get in the habit of tracking things. Get in the habit of knowing what to look at. And then as you continue to leverage that to increase cash flow, that cash flow can then invest into further systems and automation. When we talk through kind of building a business, we've got the mastery level, which is understanding these fundamental things, and then it's marketing and sales, and then it's systems. We don't go into systems and technology and all that kind of stuff first, because if we don't have the base habits and fundamentals together, it doesn't
Mm,
really matter.
mm.
We have to build
Like,
that stuff first.
so I'm hearing you say habits before systems.
Yes.
Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah. They're the layer of getting in the habit of measuring and tracking and those types of things way more critical than, you know, which CRM should I use and which data management tool should I use and how should I do it? Like, stop. Let's just get in the process of measuring it consistently, knowing what to look for. And then as you get into that habit, as you build the mastery, then it makes more sense to start leveraging some additional tools. Um,
Okay.
but I've seen that be a killer of a
Yeah.
lot of businesses is
Well,
they're
you
spent too
think
much time on that piece.
it seems like that it would be easy to go. I saw this webinar on HubSpot, for instance. HubSpot's a great platform, but let's just take that for instance.
Yeah.
There's nothing against HubSpot. I'm just picking one that I know about. And so I saw the webinar on HubSpot. I saw what they were able to do with HubSpot. I can get the same result. And that's what you want. But what I'm hearing is if your sales team won't enter data, you're paying for this tool that actually is not going to deliver a result because it can't. No inputs, no outputs.
That's right.
So
That,
I think I'm hearing habits before software. If they won't enter it into an Excel spreadsheet, they're not going to enter it into a more expensive. The fact that you paid more for it's not going to change their habit.
that's right.
Yeah, that's good. That's real. I think that's really strong. So here's another piece that I think that a lot of small business owners, I know for myself, I feel silly for even admitting this, but I think a lot of people are like me in this, is that you just don't realize the help that's out there. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to climb the mountain of having to know the ins and outs of Excel. There are Excel experts out there. Pay them a couple $100. I'll come in and set up what you need. Just tell them I want to be able to input data and output results. And Tanner told me the outputs I need. And here's the list of what he said. Please go do that. Two,
Mm-hmm.
$300 one time, they'll set it up and your Excel spreadsheet will run. I think I'm right on that. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because once that's ready to go, I mean, the cost per month is whatever
It just keeps
subscription to
dwindling down
Excel
because you
is
paid
these
more,
days, which isn't much, right?
right?
Um, yeah, that's a really really good way to look at it because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how fancy the system is. The
Mm-hmm.
thing that really matters is, do I have the data to make decisions?
Yeah.
I mean, you can go all the way back to, you got a sales team and they're making phone calls and things like that. You can print out like tick sheets and just do it manually and then put them all in a stack of paper and give them to an admin to enter into like the system. Like,
That's it.
it feels very old school and very manual, but if it works, it works. You got to build that consistency within how do we track it? How do we make that simple? How do we just not overcomplicate it?
Yes.
Um, and I'll share that I've seen a number of businesses, especially in our space, right, that are burning cash every single month because they feel they have to have this marketing thing in place and they got to have these systems in place and this technology and this and this and this and this. It's like, great. Where do you get most of your business? Well, it comes from networking.
Yep.
So go do more networking. It will
Right.
cost you a lot less and you'll get more clients and then you won't be burning cash anymore.
Yep.
Like, spend time focused on the areas that have actually make a difference in the business versus the things
Mm-hmm.
you feel that you think you need to have,
Mm-hmm.
because of all the noise that can be out there today.
And think about what you're saying because like what you're basically making is the very same point you said before, which was feeling like one thing's wrong and it's really something else. Now you feel like this one thing is the biggest impact on your business when it probably is something else.
That's right.
And if you I heard once a long time ago, chase where you're wrong, get there as fast as possible because that's
Mm,
where all the gold is. It's hard. It's a difficult process. Your enemy is not your competitor. Your enemy is yourself. I've heard that a lot too. And so if you can dig out the places that you're wrong as fast as possible, you get over that hump. And look, give the gift to yourself of more time. If you love networking, give the gift to yourself of measuring so you can go do whatever you want. We both have a mutual friend here in town, Artie Byrne, and he is like the most network guy in town. But the guy gets a powerful amount done because he knows where his metric is. He gets up every day, he makes 100 phone calls. He
Hmm.
knows where his metric is. His metric is on the phone. That's where his sweet spot is. And so
Hmm.
his key metric, his power question, his power output, his power input, they're all phone. The networking is a value add, and he's got a superpower with that. So you got to know where your superpower is, what your KPI is, what you these all come from granular data. What gives me the most output? You feel like that lines up with what you're saying? I feel like we're on the same page.
Yeah, 100%. Totally aligned on that one.
Nice, nice. Okay. So tell me about Avalanche. What is that?
Avalanche is the marketing agency that we use for kind of this interview podcast strategy. They're based out of the UK, and they kind of developed that process. So they do all of the outreach, things like that, primarily through like LinkedIn and Instagram, and but it's direct one-to-one messages with actual
Hmm,
follow-up. Like get on the phone and talk to them after somebody says, "Yeah, I'm kind of interested to
nice.
learn more."
I like that.
So they're the agency that's focused on kind of booking podcast slots for us. And then
Okay.
we leverage that as a way to one, create great content, two, be able to chat with folks that really are in kind of our target market and give the opportunity to continue to expand on that relationship. And if it makes sense, if we kind of move down that next phase, and if not, we build a great relationship, build some value for them, and they get to be a part of a podcast they can then also take and share and do all that sort of thing.
So I'm not completely clear. So I want to ask, are these the guys who message me on Instagram, dear sir or madam? I really like your business. I think you are great, and you would do great to buy my stuff. Are they those guys?
They are
That's a joke.
to yeah
I
to an extent, yes, they're the ones sending out messages, but the messaging is much better than that. Uh, because they actually test it, right?
sir or madam.
Um,
Really?
that's right. That's right. But you hit a really good point though, because I don't know how many business owners I've talked to that are like, man, LinkedIn direct messaging just doesn't work. They're in a B2B
Hmm,
space and they're like, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm like, I wouldn't be talking to you if it didn't work. Like I'm
really?
talking to you because it worked and that's how we connected. But I don't think there's enough business owners or marketers on behalf of businesses today that are really crafting good messages. They're sending out 100 messages that are identical. They're not trying to actually connect human to human,
Mm-hmm.
and provide value and be like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Like, if you're interested in buying something, we can chat about that later. Like, how can I provide value to you today? And I think based on the things that we've seen, here's how I can provide value. Would you be interested? And handful of percentage of people will say, yeah, that sounds great. And the other people won't answer. And it's like, that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to that point, it's that strategy of sending out direct messages cold to people does still work if you know what you're doing, if you know how to craft the message.
Yep.
I mentioned a few other folks on this conversation so far, but it blows my mind that there are still people out there today, businesses out there today that are crushing it with telemarketing, with actual cold calling. I'm like,
Yep.
how? Like, I don't even answer my phone if I don't know the number. But
Yep.
they're killing it because they understand the strategy. They've understand how to actually connect with somebody. Their uh, scripting and all of that is on point. They've tested, they've measured. They know that this script gets this conversion rate, this script gets this better conversion rate. We're going to get everybody to start doing this. We're going to tweak these types of things. But that's the same thing, whether it's direct emails, it's direct LinkedIn messages, it's, any other type of strategy that you can do out there. That's why the measurement is so important. It's like what actually works. And if it's not working, change it, tweak it, test it
Right.
until you find something that does.
That's it. But you hit. I mean, that is so exactly right. The reason I like to kind of boiled up about this is I've been doing this 15 years. but I can't even measure the number of times I've heard somebody say, yeah, that doesn't work anymore. That doesn't work. I tried this, it doesn't work. And this goes back to Alex Formosi, totally borrowing from him. It's not that it doesn't work, that didn't work. The thing you tried and the way you tried it didn't work. Thomas Edison famously said, I never failed. I found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb.
Hmm.
And so if you approach your marketing that way, first of all, you've got to split test. You got to split test your messaging. You've got to get you've got to just really get hardcore. If you can't write copy, you've got to find a copywriter. You've got to find somebody that will go into your messaging, go, okay, here's the problems. If you don't know what your core audience's five main fears are around your product and what your product solves, you're already behind the eight ball. So no wonder your messaging doesn't work. You can't even tie it to the most critical question you can ask your customer. And so there's so many pieces of that I feel so strongly for business owners that are convinced certain things don't work. The truth is everything works. Everything works. Telemarketing works. Mail works. I know somebody
Yeah.
right now who's driving business for HVAC off of direct mail. Right now, today,
Yep.
he's a client of mine. I do other stuff for him, but he gets business off of direct mail. It works. It's all about what are your metrics, and you can't have metrics without measuring, and you can't tweak without measuring. What are you going to tweak? You can't tweak in the dark. Well, I see a lot of business owners do that too, and it's like I feel bad for them because I know why they're doing it. If that didn't work, I need to tweak it, and I get that. But gosh, if you don't know why it didn't work, it's like you're steering a ship, and you're like, well, I don't see land yet. I got to go this way now.
Hmm.
We all do that. We all do that. I remember the old days before map. This is one of the benefits of being old. I remember before maps on your phone, and you're driving along, and you're like, this can't be right because it doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm driving west, and I know I was supposed to be going east. I'm going to turn, and then you realize you made the worst mistake because that road was about to turn east. So that's what I see with a lot of folks who are tweaking without measuring. And it's just
Hmm.
not possible. You got to measure. You got to be honest about the measurement you see. If it tells you your baby is ugly, you got to just be, oh, yeah, it looks like my
Yeah.
baby's ugly. I got to change track. I got to change direction. I got to make
Yep.
this different than I liked it. Henry
Hmm.
Ford famously said, anybody can have one of my cars in any color as long as it's black. And he had good reason for doing that, but it didn't serve his base. At some point, it stopped serving his base, and he got really behind because of that. And he's one of the most successful business owners ever. So we can all make that mistake. But if anybody out there is listening to this, if at any point in your marketing journey you're saying, yeah, I tried that, it didn't work, you need to wad that up and throw it away. And you need to get somebody in who knows what they're doing to look at your copy, look at your conversions, look at your output, look at your audience, because all that are the pieces that you have to measure to know whether it works or not.
Yeah. And for those small businesses out there that say something didn't work, or one of the other kind of resistance pieces I hear a lot is like, I just don't have time to measure all of this stuff, right? And all of these things can work. That doesn't mean you need to do them all. And
Exactly.
that brings back to why we measured the way we did, why we pinpoint here's the three that work or have produced the biggest results. We're going to focus on those first. Now, will we do all 10 that we had? Absolutely we will. But we look at scaling marketing and being able to have the time, the energy, and the focus to be able to do it. Start with those three, whatever the main ones are for your business. Really focus on maximizing those first. Like, go 1 month, get that return on investment. If you see a return on investment and you can measure that effectively and know that if you do it again, you're going to get a return on investment again, double your investment into it. And then do it again and do it
Mm-hmm.
again and do it again until that one no longer continues to show that same level of result. You'll eventually hit kind of that plateau point. You're like, all right, this is kind of the all we're going to get out of it. We start to see it come down a little bit. It's at that point that we start to test in the next one, because we have so much cash flow coming off that one strategy because it works, that
Yep.
now we're not sitting here going, all right, I'm going to go burn cash to figure out this next thing that I've never done before. I have
Yep.
profitability coming off something that is proven to work. I can
Mm-hmm.
say, all right, I'm going to take a very, very small percentage of those profits, 5%, maybe 10%. And now I'm going to test Google Ads.
Right.
And I'm going to understand that in my micro test, I'm going to fail a lot. And
Hmm.
that's okay. I just need to learn very, very quickly which ones don't work so that I can start to build that same momentum and put the energy and the focus there rather than saying, well, there's 10 strategies. They all can work. I'm going to throw it out there and we're going to do it. Great. But then you're going to run into that issue of, well, I just don't have time to put the right level of energy and focus on each of these. So boil it down, bring it back. That's why this, measuring and looking at what's actually working is one of the most critical first steps to growing and building within marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I heard you say something in there about what I heard is discipline.
Mm.
You can't go just brought in $25,000. I like this boat. This boat is good for me. We all want to do that. I think what you're saying is you have to have the discipline of whatever your ratio. Incoming cash, how much of that gets allocated to marketing, how much of that goes in a rainy day fund, how much of that goes to operations. And if you don't, if you there's two mistakes. You can spend the money on things that don't bring you more business. I think another mistake that I think you're pointing to is you can't just quit spending.
Yeah.
You can't just go, okay, cool, that worked. We're going to let that one ride. We're not going to try anything else. We're just going to let that ride. That's how lots of people have fallen behind the eight ball because they haven't understood what's going on in the market. This works, so we're just going to keep doing this. This is the formula. And they don't recognize that every 5 years, especially now, it might be a little faster now, but every 5 years, your market ages into another demographic, you know? And the wired generation, I think we've kind of lost sight of it a little bit because we don't everything is so present now that we lose sight of the fact that starting in 2000, that was the first generation of children born who, in their early childhood, had a smartphone in their hands.
Mm.
They don't know a world without the internet, and they don't know the world without a smartphone. And those kids are 24. So yeah, yeah. Listen, talk about feeling old. I went to watch the Mavericks game the other night at one of my favorite Mexican restaurants. I'm sitting at the bar because I didn't have a lot of time. I sit down and I look over and it says, to buy alcohol in this establishment, you have to be born after, and what year are you expecting? That kind of starts telling you how old you are. 2003. And I was like, I had been an adult for 15 years by 2003. What, what just happened? So it's a big deal. If you're not paying attention to how your website performing on mobile, you're throwing away so much money. There's
Yep.
almost nobody that's not affected by that. If you're not paying attention on Google Search Console to your desktop conversions versus your mobile conversions, just that piece alone will tell you a lot. Same thing in your ads. You've got to understand how people consume your product on mobile because it's really I don't think it's possible to overstate that how much the customer journey has changed
Yep.
uh, just in the last 5 years. It's so massively different, and now AI is coming on board. So I don't want to get too far away from your main point here. I think the discipline piece is so important, but discipline starts with measuring. You can't have discipline without measuring. I've known business. I could name you two businesses right now that were amazing at sales and went out of business
Hmm.
because they didn't understand their margins. They thought their margins were one thing and it turned out they were something else because there were some key factors they didn't. And I know you being a business coach, you've seen that, right?
Yep. Yeah. All the time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it you take all this and you look at discipline and measurement and things like that. It goes so far beyond just business, right?
Mhm.
As being someone that was kind of in the fitness world for a long time, like it's the same thing there. You want to see changes to your athletic ability or body composition or anything else like that. You must always have to measure to figure out what did I do last week that I'm going to do this week and how do I progressively build upon that. Calories in, calories, like all of those types of things you still have to measure, and people are
Mhm.
used to that if they want to see a result. And the thing is, there's so much parallels between that in business and in pretty much any other aspect of life. But yeah, that discipline and understanding what's actually happening, having those optics is like there's your big key and your big unlock to accomplish almost anything that you want to in life and in business.
Yeah, I think that's a great. I don't know what else you've got in the tank, but that's a great ender. That's a great ender because I think maybe the companion piece to that is understand what. Don't feel like you have to do everything. You made that point earlier. There are so many experts out there that you can bring in for a one-time fee, and they'll basically straighten your whole ship out in those areas that you don't like touching and set you on the right track. And then eventually you hire for that hat. If you go into the email, you're wearing all the hats, but you got to define those hats, and then you get to hire for that hat eventually. Once you get better
Hmm.
and better and better, bring that hat into the business instead of being an outside consultant. But in the meantime, as a first step, get an expert to come in and measure things for you,
Hmm.
because at least you'll know what's going on. Get them like you were saying, get them to set up an Excel spreadsheet so that when your team enters data, you're getting a measurable output that gives you decision making capability.
Yep.
Yeah. And I like what
100%.
you said. Say that again. You said something like anything you ever want to accomplish is accomplished through discipline or measuring or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, it was some version of, the if you want to have success in business and life and kind of any aspect, the measurement and the optics around what's happening and how to make, changes with that on the path to the destination. Um, that's what leads to success. That's what leads to growth. We're all, if I were to take it a step further, there's no such thing as just staying still, right?
Yep.
There's either growing or there's dying or shrinking, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
one or the other. There's no such thing as just like staying exactly static.
Yep.
So the goal is to always be in that growth mode, whether that's just us as individuals having some personal growth, whether it's in business, it's in life, and what's in whatever, but always looking for how do I just progressively get a little bit better. But I only know that I'm getting progressively better if I'm measuring what's happening before.
That's it. That's it. I think if anybody listening could just take that one thing, measure, because a lot of this can feel really overwhelming because you're getting a lot of data thrown at you, a lot of ideas thrown at you, but just measure. All you do today is measure. What'd you spend your time on yesterday? What'd your team spend your time on yesterday? You know, and then start looking at the output and just be really honest and that level honest about the output, and then that'll start giving you some direction. I like what you said about if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. If you're not growing, you're dying. I like the metaphor of the ship really well for that because I think the ocean is a great metaphor for business. There's no
Hmm.
such thing as a static place that you're now operating from. Ocean is not land. Whatever you're sitting on is always moving. And
Yep.
so you can't sit still and be okay because you can't steer a ship that's not moving. Water has to pass over that rudder to get inputs that then tell you a direction that then you can change your uh, outputs on. Or maybe that's the other way around. But in any case, I really like what you've said today. Is there anything else you want to share about your system or what you measured or things you observed out of that?
I not for today. I think that
Okay.
we've covered quite a few things. If I have a shameless plug, it'll be, this process isn't always easy. Like it's simple in the way that you look at it, but it's not
Mhm.
always easy. You had mentioned a number of times kind of the more difficult conversations, just being very honest, and that's a huge reality in life and in business. And for the business owners that are listening, you are not your business. The
Yeah.
identities should be
Mhm.
separate. And I know that's
Mhm.
very, very hard to do, but if you can start to separate that, that allows for a little bit easier on the hard conversations and just like, this is what the data says, right? But if you don't have a mentor, a coach, or somebody else like that that can help guide you through this process, highly encourage it. If
Yeah.
that's something that we can have a chat about, totally open to it. But whether we're a fit or not, I encourage every business owner to have some level of outside perspective to assist with this process because it isn't always easy, and it takes a little
Mhm.
bit more of that time, energy, and effort and discipline to get it in place.
Yeah, and you said you've got the free kind of like sing for your supper. Like come in, check us out. You can come, secret shop us, check out what we do. We'll show you how we would do approach this, and then you can decide for
Yeah.
yourself. Is that kind of
Yeah.
how it works? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actioncoachcentraltx.com. You can see kind of all of the stuff about us specifically here in Central Texas. But if you are a business owner and you're looking kind of for that next step, you want to see what it's like, get the perspective, things like that, but aren't, you're not at a point where you're like, oh, I'm going to hire a coach. It's like, okay, we totally get that, right? You know, give us a call. There's a few different places online to be able to connect in, but we'll give you that first session for free. We'll take you kind of through a week and a half, 2 week process of guiding you into kind of a coaching session. We'll go through a 2 hour kind of strategic one-to-one personalized session for the business. Walk through some of these types of things and how some of the basic stuff that we do measure on a consistent basis. It's like, if you're going to start somewhere, what are the main things to start measuring and how does that impact your business? We'll take you through that, individually within that. Completely free, gives you a chance to see and feel what coaching is like. And then if you decide from there, this is cool, I'm interested, we can talk about what coaching looks like. If not, you walk away with some great strategies, tactics, and things that you can start to implement. So that's always what I would recommend if you're in business today. That's a great place to start and just kind of get that outside perspective. And worst case, you walk away knowing a couple, business minded folks that will
Yeah.
always be on your side to answer questions along the way.
Yeah, I like that. I'm really impressed with how much time y'all put into that. You're doing like, you said a week and a half, right?
Yeah, roughly. If you wanted to jump into a coaching session, we're not going to say, "Hey, let's do it tomorrow." It's going to
Right.
be we want to get to know the business a little bit. There's going to be a
Mhm.
questionnaire that we have you fill out to kind of get you thinking a little bit differently about the business. We're going to walk through some top areas in an additional call. Like you get a couple different conversations with a coach leading up into it, and then we sit down. Then we go through a full thing because at the end of the day, what's the point in you investing 2 hours of your time and not getting value? We want to ensure that we've done the build up to ensure that you get value from the time that you're investing.
Cool. And we'll leave links to all this. We'll leave links to our socials so you can reach out to us at any point, ask any questions. But we'll leave links to how they can sign up, right? We'll have that in the
Absolutely.
description. Perfect. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. Well, good stuff. So if this is a good time, we'll pivot to kind of what I prepared for today. I think it's a great way to do it. We didn't plan it this way, but I think it's perfect because what you've talked about is much like the hierarching, the overarching, like you need to tweak and measure in your business. And what I'm actually going to jump into is some hyper granular uh, tweaking and measuring from the local SEO side. So I can kind of tell you how I got here real quick. Just I like nutshell bios. I don't want to do 20 minutes on. I was born in a small shack on a large river, But I've been doing digital marketing for 15 years. I've been in and around construction my whole life. Um, I've done consulting and sales for different construction companies throughout different times, but I've also done the actual work. And so I started front burner marketing back in 2010 and progressed through my own journey. And this year, what I decided to do is niche down into really focusing on home construction businesses. Now, the tips I'm going to share with you today will work for anybody who's got a local presence. And even if you don't, some of this will still apply. Um, so you can reach out to me and ask me. I'm happy to give you any tweaks. And anybody who's interested at the end, I will give you just DM me or Tanner, reach out to us and I'll have a link down there. You can sign up. I'll give you the whole boot for free. So this is a system that guaranteed will increase your local presence. There's no doubt about it. I've proven it, and I'm going to show you the data today. So let's start by talking about the problem. So the problem is local presence. You've got an HVAC business, a remodeling business, and you notice that you get some calls, but your radius really shuts down. You go out and you do business and you don't get any calls from that. And it's within 5 miles of your shop. So, short story, you should be getting calls from within 5 miles of your business radius. You look on Google Maps, and I'll do this in a second. There's a little uh, mile measurement on the bottom right, and it will say how many miles it is. Back it out till it says 5, or take 2 and go 2.5 if you can do a little math. And you can see the radius around that map that will tell you exactly where you should be getting calls from. And if you're not, what I'm about to talk about we'll fix that. Okay. So I tell you the history of this exact project uh, that I'm gonna show you is I took over the marketing for a buddy of mine in Dallas back in probably October, and they had several main big glaring problems. The first was their copy was not good. It positioned them as a budget remodeler, but they are actually luxury remodeling at a fair price. That's their position. So they had all this small jobs, no job is too small language. Tell us your budget, we'll beat any price. Had a lot of content about replacing a door on a cabinet, which they're not going to do. Just that's the result of hiring a marketing company who doesn't understand your market. But it wasn't the marketing company's fault. It was the owner's fault because he never invested the time to tell them the story. So if you're out there and you're, especially if you're in the remodeling space, the remodeler faces a very unique set of problems. Number one, they have a long sales cycle. The date somebody decides they want to start thinking about remodeling, the date from that point to the point of purchase can be sometimes 2 years. So you got to have content out there that tells your story that's going to make them investigate you and choose you over all the other choices out there, over their cousin who does remodeling, over the guy that did the job across the street. You're gonna have a hard time beating that guy because they did the neighbors, then go in and look at. They've got a case study every single day, and if he did a great job, you're gonna have a hard time beating that guy. But the way you're gonna win those jobs is first of all to be locally relevant. You've got to be close. So, a couple of facts: the near me search. If you've ever searched restaurant near me, Italian restaurant near me, tire changing place near me, tire repair near me, roofer near me, that has taken over search. And it was a big spike in interest probably 10 years ago or so, but it revolutionized search. And so there's two concepts here that are really important. The first one, most people are going to understand. Just the idea of it being near me, we can all understand that. But the one that's harder to understand is how Google sees the near me search. So the first thing you got to understand about Google is Google can't think. It can't reason. What Google does is amasses data. For instance, if you've ever been traveling on the highway and you closely monitor the time to get where you're going, you'll see it change sometimes. The reason it changes is not because Google goes, oh, I see traffic. I know traffic is bad. I see that this traffic is slowing down. I am going to change the measurement. We think that's how it goes because that's how we think. It's not what Google's doing. What Google is doing is taking all the phones they have access to on the highway, and it's observing the speeds of all those, and then it's reverse engineering essentially your arrival time. It does the very same thing in search. So when you search Italian restaurant near me, and you see Riali's Italian restaurant, little plug for Riali's in North Austin, and then you go, oh, I like the food. I looked at the menu. It sees all this. They looked at this page, then they looked at this page, then they did directions, they went and ate there, and then if you leave a review, you're golden. Now Realities jumps way up because all those factors got measured. Google doesn't arrive at the conclusion that you like Realities. Google's built a robot that can assimilate all this data. Okay, so now let's bring it back to a remodeling business. Remodeling business in a place has to be relevant in that place. Okay, so do you mind me if I share my screen?
Please, it'll be fantastic.
All right. I never heard it said it was fantastic. I hope it's fantastic. That's a lot to live up to.
Hey man, already what you're talking about is fantastic. Like this is super fascinating.
Oh, good. That feels good at least. Okay, so what I did this. I don't know these businesses. I don't know anything about them. I just picked remodeling company in the Woodlands. If you don't know the Houston area, the Woodlands is up on the north side, and so it's also a very high end area. So it's very high end remodeling is going to go over big up here. So who I picked was I just picked these people at random. They're Superior Renovations and Construction. Okay, so what we want to look at, this is how you can simulate the near me search. One of the things that business owners fall prey to is I'm doing great on Google. Every time I search, I'm number one. And the reason they make that mistake is because they don't understand that when you search your business all the time, Google sees that. And then you go to your website, you make a search, then you go to the website. Google says, because again, Google can't think. They don't put together that you own this business and then go, They're the owner of the business, so I'm going to discount the value of that search. They don't do that. All they see is somebody searched Bob's Tire Shop in Houston, and then they went to the website. This guy really likes Bob's Tire Shop. So every time he gets on, I'm going to return Bob's Tire Shop for anything related to tires. And so a business owner gets lulled into a false sense of security. And ironically enough, they arrive at this conclusion that you talked about earlier, which is SEO doesn't work because I'm number one on Google across the board and I don't get any phone calls. This happens
Mm.
all the time. This is an extremely common occurrence in SEO. So when you're looking at the near me search, then what you have to do, you always have to search on a cold browser. And what I mean by that is if you regularly use Chrome and you have a MacBook Pro or MacBook of any kind, whatever, search on Safari. It's difficult to do this on mobile. Do it on a desktop. Search on something you've never searched on before and don't click on anything. Do not log into your Google account and don't click on anything. Once you click on something, you're changing the results. You want it. This goes back to measuring. That's why I get so passionate about all this because everything you talked about lies perfectly alongside the world of SEO. Because if you're not accurately measuring what's going on, I'm gonna maximize this so I appear not to have 700 browser tabs open. Um, if you're not maximizing and measuring exactly what's going on, how are you making your decisions? And if you don't measure on a cold browser, you're never going to get an accurate decision. Okay. So measure on a cold browser, search your keywords, not your business name. Don't do that because that doesn't really tell you much. What you want to know is your keywords. So what we ran into is this problem. Once I fixed the content, which again, I'll point to this. If your brand story, your brand voice, and your brand promises are not just saturated on your website, you've got a real problem because you're just an also ran. Because that's pretty much everybody out there. 95% of all websites have poor brand execution, if any brand execution. Most of them go, here's my logo, I've done my branding. Now here's our specials, pricing, will come today. So there's all these granular endpoint promises that they're making, but there's this whole gap between the brand and the brand promise down to the deliverable. I'll be very brief on this. What's it like to work with you? For instance, you guys have already talked about what is it like to work with you because you're going to give me a bunch of time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the first thing. You're so confident in what you do that you're going to give me a bunch of your time. That's powerful. Okay, there's a huge amount of brand promise in there. There's also some brand story. Okay, then there's brand voice. All that's baked into that one promise. Really, really strong. So in your business, you've got to have that on the site. So once you're past that, now how are you going to get that brand story, promise, and voice found, right? And so if you're a hyperlocal business, and what I mean by hyperlocal is you're not regional, you don't serve multiple cities out of one location. People don't go online and buy from you. Okay, so we're cutting out whole swaths of businesses. This is
Mm.
hyperlocal. A remodeling company is not going to drive from Houston to Dallas and do a remodeling job unless it's a $30 million remodeling job. They're not going to go up there and replace a kitchen, right? Because the economics just don't make sense. So
Mm.
we're talking about hyper local. Now you dial down even beyond that. Most remodeling companies, if they know what they're doing and they're any good, they're not going to be driving all the way across Houston all the time. Because now, if your guy left the one wrench that will tighten this sink at the shop, you've either got to go buy a new one or you got to put 4 hours into traffic. And so you don't want to stretch your supply lines out that far. And so you're going to want to stay, like anybody based in the Woodlands probably wants to stay on the north side of Houston. They're probably going to do like a half dome shape across the metroplex of Houston. That's what my guy does. He's on the north side of Dallas, and that's where he wants to be. The 635 corridor running across and
Mm.
up. That's he doesn't want to go south of 635 if you know Dallas at all. So let's get back to our results. So what are we talking about with a near me search? So what my guy ended up with the problem was, so let's see, let's open this in maps. Where is my ability to open this in maps? Let's just search their company. What is it again? Superior renovation and construction. All right, we should get a map return out of that. Right here. If you're in Texas, it's not right here, it's right here. Okay, so now we should be getting, we're not, there it is. Okay, so this little guy down here, bottom right, can you see that 1,000 feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me get rid of this tool here. Okay, yeah. So 1,000 feet. What you want to do is you want to zoom out until you get something like 5 miles. There's your 1 mile. Two. Okay, there's your 5 mile. So 5 mile, that looks like to be about 1.25 inches. This tool really wants to tell me information. So right here. Okay, now what you can do is just zoom right back in with your pointer on that spot. Okay, so now I know to the right of 45 here, over in this Glen Eagles Montgomery Creek Ranch, that's my outer limit of where I want to be relevant. Okay, is that making sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, now check this out. Now I will go and search company near, what's the name of that? Glen Eagles. Let's just say Glen Eagles. It should get that. You see that? You see how it searches near me?
Yes.
It will say near Washington, D.C., because that's a really popular search. But near me, near me, near me, near me. Once you put near in, or even if it's a home service business, it's a dominant search factor. Okay, so near Glen Eagles. Yeah, the Woodlands. See, Google knows where this is. For anybody watching this, one of the ways that you want to search is you want to begin to put your keyword in, um, and then see what Google says about it. Okay, so that's a really good research factor that doesn't cost you any money. You don't have to pay any money for tools, and I'll show you a little bit on that in a second. So near Glen Eagles, the Woodlands, Google knows where this is. Okay, this is good. These people are optimized. I don't find this very often. So that's 5 miles away, and they got superior renovation and construction. So now let's go back to our, let's duplicate this. That'll leave that in place. Now we're going to go backwards one. Backwards one. Now we're back to our, one more. We'll go back to our original search with model and company, the Woodlands. Okay, so you've actually got two businesses here that are pretty well organized. Let me see, where is the Woodlands? This is interesting. It's in the same spot. Okay, so we're gonna skip this one for now. It's not showing me where it is. I don't know what the deal is on that. It looks like maybe it's, I don't know. That's interesting. So we'll skip it for now. But we got two businesses here that do show up for that same search. That's another thing I don't usually find. It figures that I would be given an example and have two outliers. But this guy here, LA Group, Texas Remodeling and Home Repairs, does not show up for the same search near Glen Eagles. So this is within 5 miles. They should be there. Okay, this guy, see, he's way closer. So when I say near, he's almost half as close. So he's within 2.5 miles. So that's why that one's getting. And then the question is, how do you get your business to do that? Okay, so that's the question I was faced with. What I had was a situation where my guy was in a place up in Flower Mound, Texas, near Louisville, and he was getting Flower Mound searches, but only within about a mile of his business. And his business had been established for a while, had tons of reviews, so he should have been in good shape. So what I began to theorize, my hypothesis was, um, it was not a preposterous hypothesis. I'm a Flight of the Conchords fan, so that jumped in my head. I have to say it. My hypothesis was there wasn't enough content on the website to prove to Google, hey, they're relevant for this. Okay.
Mm.
So what I did is I went through the website and I found some location pages that already existed, but they were not ranking at all. They were below position 100. So they were at least on page 11, which if you know anything about search, if you're on page 2, you're already sunk. Forget page 11. But Google didn't like these pages at all. They didn't show up. And so what I did is I used this system that I'm about to show you and uh, went through and beefed up the content. We made the content longer. We gave more answers to questions. We included a review, and we probably tripled or quadrupled the number of images on the page. So
Hmm.
what that does, and then we optimized all that. So everything was optimized as far as like alt text, reviews had schema, the whole 9 yards. So those pages all shot to page one, position one. They went from not ranked to page one, position one within 3 or 4 days. Now, I am not promising you that's going to happen for you because I can't. I'm not in charge of that. Google is. It depends on your competition. It depends on a lot of factors. But what I'm about to show you is important and powerful because you're not trying to win the big city. And what I mean by that is you're not trying to win remodeling Houston. Go back to our example here. We're looking at the Woodlands. If we just take the Woodlands, Texas, and we just search for that, you'll see where the Woodlands is relative to Houston. Woodlands is north of Houston and is a particular subdivision right here. Now, if we zoom out, you can see how big Houston is and where the Woodlands is. Okay, so Flower Mound's the very same way. If you're out there and you're remodeling business and you're struggling, and the SEO companies that you've had have optimized you for the large city, it's a gigantic mistake. It's a gigantic mistake. The first thing you want to do is win your backyard. Okay, and we think about our footprint, right? When we think about the footprint of a business, the local footprint is like what is their penetration in their area. Okay, so I call this system local stomp because it's the idea of we're going to make your footprint bigger and stronger, and so it's going to be just stomped into that area. So you're gonna win your entire backyard. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to bring up the kind of pages we put out, and then our tracking of that. So this is our list of keywords. These are all the URLs. Some of these are duplicates, like these are all six the same one, and they're going after these keywords. So we want to know the URL, then we want to know the keyword that we're targeting. But there's probably something like 40 URLs for just this one company. And to date, I've probably deployed about 100 to 120 of these pages, and they all perform great. There's very few exceptions. So this is what we're ranking. We're ranking their position over time because I want to know. At first, we checked every week, and now we're staggering that every 2.5 weeks because they're established now. But as you can see here, we're all high on page one with very few exceptions. And a lot of these all shoot straight to number one. Now, when you do something like this, the things we're going to be going for are like remodeling in the Woodlands, right? But within that, what you'll see here, if we go into the Woodlands, what we get is Oak Ridge North. Now remember, this is 1 kilometer. They switch between kilometer and miles all the time. Drives me insane. So a kilometer, if I'm right, is 3/5 of a mile. I think that's right. So then 3 kilometers would be, well, 5 kilometers would be 3 miles. So that gives us our 2.5, 3 mile range. So three of these is going to be what your distance would be for relevant. So this is about the radius right down in here. Okay. So Village of Grogan's Mill, Oak Ridge North, Chateau Woods, Tamina, Shenandoah. This is where you want to win. So if I go kitchen remodeling Shenandoah, let's try this. Shenandoah, Texas. That's a Texas name if there ever was one. Shenandoah, Texas. Okay, so what you see here, the first thing you notice, oops, this guy's not on there. So it's within 2 miles of his business, but he's not there in the map. So what does that tell you? There's not enough material on his website or material on his Google business profile to tell Google, hey, I'm relevant for this. Return me for this search. And that's exactly where we were with these. So with every one of these, we did not return for any of these search terms at all
Hmm.
when we started. So if I said grapevine, we had zero, we had nothing. Even on our Grapevine page that was already built by somebody else before me, it was not ranked. So once we did this, you can see it's shot straight up to page one, and it retains page one now for, well, 21st of May is the last time they measured it, but it's retained page one all the way through. And this is through, by the way, this is through two of the biggest core algorithm updates that Google has deployed in at least since Panda and Penguin. And they might be bigger, I don't know, because they're fighting the AI monster. So this is even through massive, massive Google updates, we still retain these rankings. Okay. So now here's the real question. Is this going to get us the map? That's the real question. And so when we deployed this, we got the map, and I'll show you. Let me go on a cold browser real fast. Is all this making sense so far? I've talked a lot, and I'm always getting a little bit nervous.
Yeah, it's super fascinating because it's I think it's really connecting the dots on how some of this stuff actually fits together versus kind of maybe what we've heard out there. Yes, this has been really cool.
Okay, so kitchen remodeling, Bridalwood, Texas. This is and I'm gonna go. Most SEOs don't want to do this. I don't want to do this because there's a lot of shady SEOs out there. But don't allow. Remember, don't click on anything. You see none of these links. These are my sites. This is my site. These are my pages. But I've not clicked on them. Do not click on anything when you're searching on a cold browser. So Bridalwood, Texas. I've got two pages on the top of page one. That's one massive win. Now the map doesn't appear up here. A lot of people are never going to scroll. A lot of your customers are never going to scroll. They will never leave this view. So they're not going to do this. A lot of your customers are going to be like that. And so it's really important. What you're going to get is you're going to get searches and clicks from this. And so I'll get into some of the metrics in that in a second. But this is a massive win already. Now, when I go down to the map, I got page one, position one. Okay. And we were losing to this guy. We weren't even in the map pack for Bridalwood. And Bridalwood's like a mile and a half from the shop. So our shop is very close, and um, we were losing. And so that just goes to show you the power of this and how this works. Because across the board, we got those. Now there's an exception I want to talk to you about that I'll show you here in a second. Let's see. Where did we go? I don't have any tabs. Too many tabs. You have too many tabs. So um, when we look at, like, this guy's list as a kitchen remodeler, you see the category here in all three: general contractor, kitchen remodeler, kitchen remodeler.
Hmm.
That's what Google knows you as. Now, most of the time, that's because it should be because you have optimized your Google business profile for that. Most of the time, I would say it's not, because most contractors don't want to mess with anything online. They hate it. I don't blame them at all. Um, but what that means is they haven't optimized their GBP, Google Business Profile. I'm going to call it GBP for short from now on. And when that happens, you leave it up to Google to say, what are these guys? And if all your people who review you all talk about I don't know, if they all happen to talk about plumbing repair, Google's going to list you as a plumbing repair company. If your website is not optimized well and it doesn't tell the story well that's easily digestible by Google, Google's going to guess. And remember, they are a robot. They can't read. They can't deduce. All they can do is stack data and come up with basic conclusions from that data, probably on the level of maybe a 4 or 5 year old. So
Hmm.
they're going to stack data, come to their conclusions, and that's what you're left with. If you don't tell the story, you're leaving it to them to guess your story. Very similar to what we do with our customers a lot of times. We don't tell our value proposition, our brand story, our brand voice, our brand promise. We don't tell all that well, so we leave them to guess. And really good exercise is to go out there and ask your customers, hey, what do you think we are? How would you tell somebody else what we do? Because that's going to
Hmm.
tell you what the osmosis is, right? So don't do that with Google. Optimize your Google business profile. It's probably dollar for dollar the highest return on investment you can make because you do it once and you're pretty much done. You don't have to go in and be changing stuff. You shouldn't actually be changing stuff in your like your categories and your business description and service area. Don't take one off and add another one all the time because that starts to feel spammy. You want to put you can expand service areas, but don't be taking a lot off and trying to add a bunch over here. Don't add a service area that's 50 miles from you and that's the only one that's way out there just because they got a lot of money out there. I want to go get that business. It just doesn't work that way. So optimize your Google business profile so you tell Google the story about your business that you want Google to then turn and tell to your prospective customers. Okay. So that's number one. Then number two, after that, I ran an experiment because this is a remodeling business. And one of the things they do is countertops. Well, this is how I can prove to you that Google doesn't know how to read. So there's probably not very many kitchen remodeling projects that happen without new countertops. It's just really difficult to do because you're not going to replace the cabinets. Maybe cabinet repainting, you could do that and not replace countertops. But that's about it. Unless somebody want to do just the floors or something like that. But if you're going to truly do a kitchen remodeling project, you're going to have new countertops. It's indispensable. So you and I know that. You and your customers know that. Guess who doesn't know that? Google doesn't know that. So we did a big rollout of content for countertops. And guess what we got on Google Business Profile? Zero. And the reason is because countertops are a separate category of a business to Google than kitchen remodeling is.
Mm.
And so they are not going to give you the map return for that. And so hopefully what that tells you is you can't just have everything. You've got to figure out what you're good at and then combine that with what Google understands it to be. Okay. So now I'm going to give you an example of that. I'll show you, I talked a little bit earlier about really easy free research you can do. What you do is you go to google.com. Let's say you're a tire repair shop. So don't put the whole word in and then see how Google treats that. So there's a near me search. Here's a Leander, Austin, Dallas, Houston. Google's got no idea where I'm at. I like that. Fredericksburg of all things. Replacement near me. So I did REP. So if I'm at a tire repair shop, I know right here I've got 10 examples and only one of them are not repaired. Okay. Now I want to show you something else. This is really cool. I saw a guy do this like probably 7 years ago. Changed my whole life. Let's say tire repair near me. Let's just say near me. Now, if I go back here, this doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does. What you do is you go back to the first word, you put a space behind it. It changed. What that does when you put that space in there is it causes Google to go through somebody out there probably knows technically what's happening. But what I know is what I see is it puts some kind of variable into the equation and it returns other things. So if we take it back out, sometimes it'll take it away, other times it puts it back. So let's just go through here and go. So that went back to the original search. And now it's every time I put it back there, it's going to change. You can't really control this, but this gives you the open now puncture within 5 miles. You see all these bolded terms. They're the ones that weren't in there originally. Okay. So now let's do repair. Let's do now we didn't get any different on that one. So like I said, you're not going to get, this is not like a magic formula. What you're doing now, look at that. You got a bunch of variables with that. Look at that within 5 miles. Google knows through their analysis of billions of data points that within 5 miles is a massive reach factor for local businesses. And within 2 miles is an even bigger reach factor. So they will give you reach within those. If you're optimized properly, they will give you reach within those radiuses. That's all relative to the level of competition in your area, of course, but they will give that to you. Within 1 mile, open Sunday, mobile. So guess what? If your business is open Sunday, that needs to be all over your business profile. If your business is open 24 hours, that needs to be all over your profile and all over your website. I built a page about it. Why are we open on Sundays? Why is my tire shop near Crenshaw and Willis Boulevard? Because that gives Google a cross street to tie to. Okay. And then why do we decide to be open on Sundays? Here's the reason. My family was born, we were raised, we've been in the tire business this many years. We love this. This is a lot of really nice, warm data that people like to associate with. We've been repairing tires. We've been replacing tires. We've been rotating tires. We've been balancing tires. We've been doing alignments. All these rich keywords are built into your content. Now take that and go make posts on it on Google Business Profile. Make a 500-word post about alignments. Make a 500-word post about um, repair, uh, replacement, rotation, all these different services. Make one for each one, and make sure you've got near Crenshaw and Willis. Make sure you've got that cross street on there. Now, next step, make another page. It's got the top 3 neighborhoods that are within 2 miles of that cross street. So, uh, like relative to this, it might be Bridlewood, like the discussion we just had. The Woodlands, you might have that Shenandoah or whatever it was. So if that's one of the neighborhoods near, you would have one post about tire repair near Bridlewood, and so this gives you tons and tons of content because largely you can duplicate it. You don't want it to be exact duplicated, but you can use a lot of the same ideas and just say it a little bit differently. Reverse the paragraph order, do all kinds. There's all kinds of stuff you can do like that. You don't have to, write Shakespeare every single time you create it. But the whole point is you're trying to give Google digestible data about being near this place.
Mm.
Okay. And so and you can search your own business on a cold browser and just go out there and search near some cross street. And if you find you're not near that, Google needs more data from you. It needs to be within 5 miles of your shop, of your physical location. Whatever that physical location is, the address on your GBP, it needs to be within 5 miles of that. And I would start at 2 miles. Okay. So the 2 things to do, one is build local service pages. So main keyword for your keywords are always problems you solve for your customer. So new kitchen remodeling, best kitchen remodeling company, near, city name first, build up your content for that. Then go win all the little tiny hamlets around that main city, and then go after your neighborhoods. And that's why it's called local stomp, because when you do it right, when you build these pages out, this is what you get. You get all these keywords that we are number 1 for. So let me dive into a little bit of the data. I'll go ahead and kind of open the door on this. So let's see, Google. I think it's search.google. I can type. Nice. This is it. Yeah. Yeah. So when we get down into the queries, what you'll begin to see, first of all, we got nothing we got no clicks on anything like these location pages here, bathroom remodel Flower Mound. So that means there were 83 impressions. That means 83 people got in front. We got 3 of the clicks. Now that may not sound like much, but when you look at something like close to 4% conversion for free, we didn't pay for ads or anything for this. We got 4% conversion on the clicks there. Now the general kitchen remodel near me, we got that near me search and we got 2 clicks. This means somebody saw our website and clicked on our website. That's incredibly powerful. So I got Flower Mound. Okay, so let's get down here. Plano. I got to click out of Plano. Flower Mound. Texas. That's a different search. Frisco kitchen remodel. And you see this right here is a result of my luxury work. I put that all through the site, and so we started getting those clicks. All right, let's dig down. Fort Worth. We're getting a local return for that. So you got to understand that every one of these clicks is a buyer intent click, and the reason I know that is because of the content that I put in there, and I can also see the search that they're using. Okay, so when we look at attic renovation Flower Mound, Texas, we got 12 clicks on that. So that's 12 buyer attic renovation in Flower Mound, Texas. People are not clicking on that to define what an attic renovation is. They're doing it to find a contractor. Kitchen remodeling in Grapevine, Texas. Okay, now let's dig in. I'll show you some title tag information. So if I go and I look at this page, I can look at the title tags, and this is what's going to appear on Google's search return page. A lot of times, sometimes they'll change it on you, but most of the time it does it like this. So kitchen remodeling, Grapevine, Texas. Call, and I've got that in the title tag because that's more of a buyer intent click. Somebody who's trying to define what a kitchen remodel is not going to call you, and so they're not going to click on that.
Mm.
So I want to, by definition of the title tag itself, winnow out people who are not serious. Okay. Now the next thing is the meta description. Most people use like a biographical approach to the meta description. I like punch, value, value, value. Why are you going to do business with us? What's the biggest problem in kitchen remodeling? People getting ripped off. Who do they get ripped off by? Truck inner trucks. People who promise the world and don't deliver. People with bad reviews. People that haven't been around very long. So what have I got here? High end. This winnows out all the tire kickers and people who want everything for $1.50. Experts, 25 plus years in this city, this grapevine. Design and install, because a lot of people search for designers in this field. This comes down to research. How does your customer consume this and how do they search for it? You've got to know what your customer wants. Design and install tells them I can go to one place, get my design and my install done. Countertop specialist. Now this is a way to end around this inability for us to get in front of the Google map for countertops. It's a Band-Aid solution. It's not a great one, but it tells them countertop specialist. We rolled this out. We put countertop on all of our meta descriptions probably, I don't know, less than 30 days ago. We've gotten 2 countertop leads since then. Before then, we did not get any. And I went back 2 years over their data and they did not get any countertop leads by themselves. They didn't have anybody calling and saying, I want countertop. And we've gotten 2 since we rolled this out. So meta descriptions matter. Outstanding reviews, call. And so the meta description is really important. But then when I go look at the headers, what do my headers say? The H2 tags are actually the most important header tag in your website. If all you take from this is to go into your website and improve your H2 headers, you're going to revolutionize your website traffic. I
Hmm.
can almost guarantee that.
Interesting.
So we love serving our Grapevine homeowners. There's location, schedule my design consultation. Because remember in the meta description, I've got design and install, right? Grapevine, Texas, home remodeling experts. Where do I start my process? Here's a few questions we recommend asking a modeling contractor near you. So Google loves frequently asked questions. So that's why we've got answers to questions in our H2. Questions you should consider. This is just a value proposition kind of punch. If you want an exceptional kitchen, hire Modern Blue. If you want normal, call the other guys. Again, free consultation. That's a big conversion factor in Google Ads. They want to see free consultation. There's a lot of data out there about that. That's what our ad guys told us. That's why it's on every page. I would actually steer away from that if I could, because as a luxury remodeler, what I really want to, the message I really want to portray is we're really busy. Call us to see if we got time to talk. That's the way I would want to position it, but I can't because of the ads. Modern Blue Business Experience, our team, every detail of your kitchen or bathroom remodel. So you can see all through my H2 tags, I'm finding ways to gently put in keywords. I don't want to go kitchen remodel expert, kitchen remodel with experience. This many kitchen, you don't want to just pound a single keyword idea because you might get ranking, but now you're going to turn your audience off. So you have to really strike a balance. So yeah, so you can see I've got 16 H2s. I like to have at least 9. So in this model, if you've got at least 9 with 1,000 words of content, and then you need at least 5 images. We have a bunch. We have 23 total images. That also includes our background images and things like that. And look, this page is not perfect. There's a lot of work. I actually had a 2-hour meeting yesterday with our website guy about all the things that we're working on. But what I can tell you is before me, they were getting literally 0 leads per month. And now we're probably averaging 16 to 18. Now that doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that the smallest remodeling job that we do is probably $7,000 or $8,000 with probably a 30 to 40% margin. So a single lead is, our conversion rate probably 70%. Our close rate on leads is probably 70%. We close 70 to 80% of the people that come in on the website. And I take out anybody who's not serious. Somebody who wants a door change, they're not a lead. Somebody who wants a single vanity, they're not a lead. We might even get that job, but I'm not going to include them because that's not our core market, and it's not going to do anything for the numbers. I don't want you. We talked about discipline and honesty in your measurements and being brutally honest about it. I don't want anything to be included in the mix of what we might call success that doesn't translate to success. I don't want to put a number in there and say this was success when if we get and win that job, it doesn't change anything for the business. You
Mm.
know, a $1,000 vanity, by the time you design it, custom build it, install it, and then somebody else is doing the countertop because all they wanted is vanity from us. That's not doing anything for the business. The salesman's not going to make any money. The owner's not going to make any money. Nobody's happy, so I'm not going to count that as any. So with this, if you change your uh, uh, header strategy, make sure you've got a minimum of 9 H2s, a minimum of 5 images. I would say really more like 10. Make sure every image is marked up. It's got alt text on it. When you load the image, don't let it be image.0.123 ABC. That can't be the title of the image. Change the name on your computer. Change it. Rename it to high-end kitchen remodeling in Grapevine, Texas. Best remodeler in Grapevine, Texas. If it's a picture of a kitchen remodel, say kitchen remodel with quartz countertop, kitchen remodel with wood look tile, kitchen remodel with shaker cabinets. So be really specific in the actual title of the image. And that is going to affect two things. Number one, it will affect your SEO positively. It's also when you upload that same image to GBP, and that is one place you can actually get some SEO juice out of GBP. You can't do anything with geodata. You used to be able to upload an image with geodata, like you could put location data on the image and you'd get
Mhm.
some juice on GBP, but Google killed that. But now the actual image file name will actually help you out and give you some data. So let's get back to our page. I want you to get 98 tags. I want you to get, let's say 8 minimum images. I want 1,000 words content. I want a review on every page. And I want you to answer 2 questions. Now you say, Kyle, how do I know what questions to answer? And I'm really glad you asked that. I'm going to show you how to find that out. So the best questions to answer are the ones that Google wants you to answer. How do you know the questions that Google wants you to answer? This is where you're going to find out. And this will be the last thing I'll cover. We are like so way over where I thought we were going to be. And I hope you're still awake. This might be a good way to put you to sleep at night. H2 tag, alt text. Um, let's see. Let's do business coaching. We're going to go far afield here, far away from remodeling. Okay. So what you do is punch down to people also ask. Now, this has been around for a little bit, but I don't see it very often. Things to know. Okay. You want to include all these categories on your website. Build a page for each one. What is business coaching? Blog post. Job description. What business coaches do? Blog post. Blog post series. But you want what business coaches do somewhere in the title or the H2 tags. Okay.
Mm.
So a lot of people know about H1 tags, but SEOs like me spam the dog out of those things. And so you can't really use them. It's important to still have it and you want to have keywords in it. It's the title of the page, but the H2 tag is king now. I've done tests where we had 0 H1 tags, but 9 H2s and we still ranked. You can't do the
Mm.
reverse. You can't have an H1 tag that's good and have no H2s and rank. It doesn't work. The
Interesting.
H2s are it. Okay. It's much harder to spam them because it's about volume and quality. It's quantity and quality. That's why it's so hard for it to spam. And that's why I think it rules. Okay. So you want these in, but let's get back to our question. People also ask, what does a business coach do? How much does a business coach cost? Is it worth paying? What's the difference? Okay. Now, a lot of people don't know this. They'll open these up and look at them, blah, 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 then they move on. But let me show you a little trick. Open it and close it. There were 4, now there's 6. Open it, close it. There were 6, now there are 8. Keep doing this, and it'll just keep on loading questions.
Hmm.
Now, eventually, you exhaust. Now, this is again, remember, Google can't read. I'm about to prove it to you again. If Google could read, they would never return anything in this list that does not pertain to a business coach. Now, this might be too broad. We might not be able to exhaust this one, but I'll get one that's closer. Get down to the bottom. Look at this, life coach, executive coach. What Google's doing is, man, you've asked me so many questions now. I've got to start casting around to find a different result because I'm running out of what I can see is relevant. Okay. So, but what this does is it gives you the ability. Let me see if you can. Yeah. So you just take these, just climb right up the list, do a little copy and paste, drop this into a spreadsheet, and there's your blog post for the next. Good grief, you might never run out of blog post material for this because look, go 5 fears and 5 desires on every one. How much do CEO coaches charge? Well, what are 5 fears that people have about hiring a CEO? Let's go business coach because that's what you guys are. So if I was consulting for you, I'd go write me a blog post on 5 fears that people have about hiring a business coach.
Hmm.
I call this fall out of bed content. If I call you at 2 o'clock in the morning and wake up right now and give me 5 reasons somebody should hire a business coach, you could do that. Every business owner has this ability. It's fall out of bed content. So I call you 2 o'clock in the morning. What are 5 facts about tire repair? What are 5 facts about kitchen remodeling? What are the 5 worst horror stories you've heard about kitchen remodeling? Bing, it's just going to pop right in your head. Doesn't matter how tired you are. Okay. So that's 5 fall out of bed content. Right on that first. Okay. So 5 fears, 5 horror stories. Then talk about success stories right after that because people are more motivated by fear than they are by success. Most people
Mm-hmm.
that are really successful have an inward driving fear of not being successful that they may have dealt with it through therapy, but that drove them early on. People, that's why reviews have taken over since Amazon introduced it back in whenever, because people can feel safe about buying this product. There's 25,000 other people bought this product and it's got 4.9. Now I buy the product and it tastes like gravel and salt when it was supposed to taste like honey. Now I know at least 24,500 of those reviews are fake, but I bought it because I felt safe, right? So
Mm-hmm.
people buy because they want to feel safe. They buy on emotion, they justify with logic. And so these questions will point you in that route. Now, the big thing that you got to understand is when you write on this, you got to include this just like it is. Why do business coaches charge so much? Okay. You can't change this. People think that business coaches in Austin are making too much money. That's not going to get you the same result. Put this in quotations because then it feels like somebody actually asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
And do a series, part 1. Why do business coaches charge so much? Part 1. You might have heard this before. Business coaches charge too much. I had an interview. My friend Sally said she had an interview with a business coach. It's going to cost $25,000, and that's not worth that, right? Right? Question mark. Well, maybe not. Here's why. You justify it. Part 1 is about metrics. Okay. Part 2 is about vision. Part 3, do a blog post series on that, but it's all got this question in it. Now let's go back to our uh, page example. 9H2s. We're going to go 8 images, 1,000 words of content. I want to review on the page with schema. That's a whole different thing, but there's experts out there who can do it for you. Don't spend hours of time learning to do schema. There's too many people who do it for you for not very much money. You want schema on the review. Answer at least 2 questions. This is where you source your questions. Okay. So whatever
Mm-hmm.
business you do, just search it. Don't search it local. Don't say business coach in Austin. Search it broad, business coach, tire repair questions. If you can't get a people also asked, then search your keyword solution set questions and you'll get one. Okay. So keep opening it until you run out, till you get at least 20 topics, drop those into a spreadsheet and then make a content plan. If you've got a content writer, they're going to absolutely fall in love with you when you give them this. Because the
Mm-hmm.
number one thing they can't get anything from a business owner is they can't get topics. It's difficult for content writers. I've been there so many times. What do you want me to write on? I don't know. That's why I hired you. Great. I'm going to bring you this content. I don't like that. Okay. Well, what do you want me to write on? I don't know. That's why I hired you. That's a really vicious circle that copywriters go through. And I don't blame business owners. It's not their job. So no hate. But this is where you can get your topics. Now, what you can do is take 100 words, 100-word answer on any one of these, ask the question in an H2 tag, and then put the answer on it. Easy win. Easy win. There's your topic. You already know the answer. Give me 100 words on it on every page. Put put one of these questions and answers on every page on your website. And you will see these start to show up in search results because Google wants these questions answered because they see them being asked. Remember, Google can't read. All they do is assimilate data. So they've taken this data and people are asking these questions. Your audience is asking these questions. Google knows it and they're looking for people to answer it. Okay. So 9H2 tags, 8 images, 1,000 words of content, a review, answer 2 questions. Do that on 5 pages, track it on Google Search Console, and I will drive to you and give you a nice shiny dollar if it doesn't work. No, I'll give you free consulting. If it doesn't work, you contact me. You show me what you did. I promise you, I'll give you some free consulting. We'll get it to work. We'll figure it out. Something I've deployed this on too many pages, and I'm telling you, I call it local stomp because the impact is it's overnight. Like I said, they were at 0, and now we're between 12 and 18, and we're still growing. I'm going to keep growing it, but we're already at 12 to 18 qualified, interested, ready to buy customers coming in the door. So again, I've talked a lot. Do you have any questions or anything? Is there anything I can clear up?
This has been really fascinating. I've been, taking a few notes. I pulled up a browser that was starting to kind of search different things as you were chatting. Um, but I mean, even the little things like, this is how you can find questions. And if you, open it up and close it, and it actually gives you more, like little things like that, I don't think many people know. Uh, but probably one of the most important things that you stated that I think is just like, I hadn't thought about before. I'm sure many haven't. It's just the first thing you want to do is win your backyard and not go for everything. Just win the backyard and go that. It's like that's that's powerful.
Yeah, I actually have a funny story about that. I got turned down by a prospect the other day. He said, "Give me some of your experience. What are you doing for people like me, hyperlocal business?" He wasn't winning Waco. That's a problem. Waco's only got about 150,000 people in it, and nobody there optimizes anything because everybody's known everybody and their dad for 50 years. And so they're not very optimized. If you can't win Waco, you've got problems. And so I checked his website. Sure enough, he has problems. So he's like, okay, well, show me some of the people you've worked on. I gave him some examples, and he goes, yeah, I searched remodel in Dallas. They didn't show up anywhere. And I was like, well, you don't. Number one, you don't want to try to win Dallas. The people that are on top of Dallas have spent probably over $1 million on their marketing in the last 2 years.
Hmm.
You don't want to go fight that gorilla. You're a little pipsqueak. You don't want to be fighting the biggest guy on the block. There's no reason to. You don't even have
Yeah.
the infrastructure to win that battle. If you got the search, you couldn't handle the business. So you want to win your backyard. Win where you are first. Make that money. That's the money that's laying on the ground for you to win. Go get that money. Now we can go take that money and start building a campaign to start going after the gorilla. We can win wherever the gorilla is not winning.
Yeah.
So I, I'll say this, you can reverse engineer what your competition is doing. You can see where they're weak and you can go win that business as a second stage after you win your backyard. Win your backyard first. Then you can expand out from that.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Cool. Well, any questions? We'll have all my stuff. Tanner's got all his stuff. We'll put that into the description. I'm gonna make a download or a contact page especially for this. So I'll create that link and we'll include that as well. If you want the plan, I'll give you the plan and I'll have notes on everything we said that I talked about here. Tanner's also gonna have notes and things and top tools and stuff to use. We'll make all those recommendations, have links in the description. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Powerful stuff. Excited to see the wins for a lot of the businesses and such out there. That'll be fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed it, man. I really enjoyed hearing where you guys come from. I don't think I can overemphasize this enough that the amount of time you're putting into the free consultation is over and above. I will tell you this, I don't do that. I don't do 3 stages. I do research. I'll give you a free half hour. But by then I'm going to give you 5 free tips and you can go improve your website with that. but I don't do multiples like you guys do. I'm really blown away by that. So anybody listening, you should definitely, like, if you've got anything going on, definitely take advantage of that, because that's a big giveaway.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and I love the uh, thank you for the comments. It's definitely a fun thing, and hey, I think between the two of us and many of us in these types of industries, it's all about how do we actually get value and results for those that we work with, and the more we can provide that value up front, yeah, that's the best way to approach it.
The more you give, the more you get. The more you give, when you give first, I think the whole community improves, because everybody you're connected with, I'll give my example. Just feeling that, you haven't even actually done any consulting for me, so I'm not saying it like that. What I'm saying is knowing I'm aligned with somebody who gives that much, that makes me feel better. That makes me feel better, and now I feel better about giving, and then somebody else is going to feel it, it improves the whole community. I really, really love that.
Mm.
Well, cool, man. Well, I guess we will go ahead and wrap up here, and yeah, see you in the next video.